Dynatrace is really executing well on its vision of, it's kind of like, what's the analogy here? The analogy is like a chef that has all his tools in the kitchen in the right place. Dynatrace is ready for the engineers to have all the tools they need at the right place at the right time to triage an outage.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of E360's Tech Sessions podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing Dynatrace Perform 2025. I'm Barry Hen, Field CTO here at E360, and I'd also like to introduce Roy Douber, who's here with me to further discuss what we learned and found exciting. Roy?
Hi, name is Roy Douber. I'm the observability lead here at E360. We had an awesome time at Dynatrace Perform 2025, and we wanted to give a short recap of everything we saw. That was a really exciting conference, and we really enjoyed it, and there's lots of features to discuss, and we want to give you a brief overview.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot that I found exciting as well. Roy, what were some of the highlights and what did you find most exciting that you want to talk about first?
So I think there's a lot of excitement because I think with the onset of AI, we are seeing that the addressable market for some of these tools has grown tremendously. The code that engineers are writing is being created at a faster pace. And so as you release more quickly, you need better checks and balances to ensure that everything you're doing in the code that is distributed across your application is working in the way you'd expect. And I think Dynatrace is really executing well on its vision of, it's kind of like, what's the analogy here? The analogy is like a chef that has all his tools in the kitchen in the right place. Dynatrace is ready for the engineers to have all the tools they need at the right place at the right time to triage an outage. And so I think that's what makes Dynatrace have such a kind of holistic feel to it. It's really
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I think what we learned about some of the new announcements at Perform, what I found particularly impressive is they're really rounding that out. They're adding in things like security modules, CSPM, KSPM, so Kubernetes Security Posture Management, and the AI for AI. I mean, imagine in the year 2025, we're getting to see AI as a topic of conversation at a conference. Who's surprised to see that? Um, so what else within the AI space did you learn about with Dynatrace this time around?
Yeah. So, if you've used Dynatrace, or maybe you haven't, I'll just assume we haven't. They were kind of one of the originators of using AI in the operations space with their Davis AI. And that was prior to generative AI. So they had their causal AI, and they continue to make improvements in this space. They released an enhanced version of Davis that basically not only does it give you the causal AI that you've had previously, but also it tries to give you answers based on, language models to the problems that your system is experiencing in real time. So it really brings both of your alerting storyline as a company to bear, while also trying to give you the knowledge base of the internet, which is generally what engineers tend to do anyways. It's like, oh yeah, the meme with the Google picture. Here's what I do for work every day, and everybody goes to the search bar for Google. Well, it seems like they've tried to bake a co-pilot of their own into Dynatrace, and it gives pretty good answers from the breakout sessions that I've been in. I was pretty impressed, and all of that leads to a reduction in mean time to innocence, mean time to repair, and moving reducing the amount of time you spend in an outage scenario, which is what businesses bought the product for.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I found particularly impressive was seeing how Davis can be leveraged in order to perform a root cause analysis in real time to when the actual outage began, which is almost unheard of in operational worlds today. Uh, were there any other announcements, Roy, that you found to be extremely interesting or helpful within the current climate of technology?
Yeah, so I think in the AI space, obviously, what I found interesting is everybody's trying to leverage these large language models, but there's less interest in capturing what are the questions that are being asked by the users that are using those. And that's what observability for AI will provide you. Um, and it will even try to tell you whether the answer was good or bad uh, per the customer feedback. So, say you get a question often, you're going to be able to see it in Dynatrace's observability and say, well, let's look at this answer. This answer looks like it's too shallow of an answer, or it's not a good enough answer. So let's create the knowledge base so that now when Nate Davis comes back the next time, we know exactly the answer that it will receive, and they're going to receive a good answer that's going to help them move forward. The other thing that they were talking about, and I've yet to see this in practice. We had some breakout sessions, but really moving the conversation from a reactive to a proactive, leveraging AI. So Dynatrace is continuously looking at the data coming in, and because you have all the data in context, it's going to let you know not when it's an outage, but prior to the outage when it subsumes there is an outage coming. And that's kind of the Holy Grail. We've always talked about it. Well, how do we move from our own set of alerts that we've created, our curated data set that we've created, to something that can come to us like before it all happens? I don't
Yep,
want the outage at all. I want to prevent the outage. And so they've
exactly.
they've modeled a way to try and figure out when the outage is coming, like looking at those info messages or early warning messages and trying to correlate them and causate them together to lead us to an answer so that we can take action prior to everything failing or degrading, which is kind of the Holy Grail. So I think
So speaking of Grail, Grail is an actual Dynatrace product for anybody that's not aware. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the advancements over the last year plus since Grail has become a prolific part of the Dynatrace platform?
yeah. So I think the platform needed a logging solution. They released Grail, I believe it might be like a year and a half ago. Um, and it now competes with the best tools in the industry from a search perspective. It has its own query language, which I don't necessarily love. There's plenty of languages that could have been used, I would say, that are commonplace, but they also have the AI engine that helps you generate the queries, right? Like, so again, leveraging AI within the platform to make the user experience improve. And I think that's one of the kind of the best things about Dynatrace is the user experience is it has a luxurious feel to it. You have all your tools in one place. You can jump from, your security to your APM, to your traces, to your database transactions, all within one system. And it's a very clean uh, experience.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fantastic, and that's definitely something I found particularly impressive as well. And now that we've looked at everything it can do from the observe side with predictive analytics and being able to achieve root cause analysis in really short order, The other part that they've really been doubling down on in investments is the automation engine, which will help you do auto remediation and things of that nature. What did you learn at Perform that kind of related to their automation engine and some of the capabilities there?
I think again, it's a very easy to use platform. You basically have a bunch of boxes and a flow that you can execute against. You can execute approvals against. You can execute API calls. You can run Ansible playbooks. There is quite a few integrations out there that they've baked into the product where they might not be a first-class citizen within Dynatrace necessarily. So like they're not trying to be an automation platform for spinning up resources. So they say, oh yeah, you can integrate with Terraform, you can integrate with Ansible, you can integrate with whatever platform of choice you have internally. And there's quite a few of those. The other thing they're not trying to do, which I found interesting, is they're not really trying to go into the, incident space as much. So they're relegating that to a PagerDuty, to a ServiceNow, to X Matters. So very tight integrations with that as well. And I think it's again everything that you need in one place to take a set of alerts from something that you view on a day-to-day basis and automate your work away. Um, and that follows all the principles of DevOps, like reducing toil, not doing things more than once if you don't have to, minimizing the time it takes to resolve issues, knowledge transfer, all
Uh,
within one platform.
yeah, and you started mentioning about developers and the developer experience. Can we talk a little bit about what they've announced in order to kind of bring more to the shift left approach of how to enable more in developers' hands?
Yeah. So I think it's not even just developers. I'll touch on developers, but I think it's the entire suite of users at an enterprise, right? They're really pitching a platform for everything. And I think it's really, really interesting. It's kind of like, I call it like a reverse snowflake or something like that, where rather than developing the data platform first, they develop the use cases on top of the data platform and they continue to expand their offerings. So they now have, an offering for a security professional, an offering for an operator, an offering for an engineer, an offering for DevOps, an offering for the C-suite, an offering for the director level. So, they're looking at business metrics and business events and integrations with SAP and products that really, really are close to how the businesses report their revenue, top line, bottom line, how they calculate it, how they measure it in real time. Very, very interesting approach, and I think from my vantage point, it's a winner. It's a winning approach.
Yeah,
It Yeah,
sorry,
and
I
and
couldn't.
so to jump into the dev side, um, they acquired Rookout, I think it was a year ago, and that's the live debugging tool. And there's quite a few small contenders in this space. Like we've watched a demo of Lightrun in the past. There's a few others in this space. Um, Very interesting and very useful, especially when you're dealing with distributed applications. The idea here is that you put a probe into the running production environment, and then you can inspect the code in real time and solve the problem in real time. With the data right in front of you, it makes it much easier than trying to say, okay, I'm going to go into staging, I'm going to go into my development environment and try to replicate this. No, in this case, you can almost see everything in production and take it back and either work on it right there live, or you can then take your findings to the developer, or as a developer develop it yourself. I think that's one key addition. So live debugging, and a lot of advanced analytics that are specific to the software engineers that are working on, trying to increase their productivity. So one of the key metric that they gave, I think Dell was there giving a presentation, And they're like, our engineers were like, before Dynatrace and all the tooling, 30% utilized. So they're only writing code 30% of the time. And with all these new features we introduced, we were able to bump that up to like 70 or 80%, which is way above industry standard. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely an impressive metric, and it's definitely what I find more impressive is that there's a platform out there that could enable that with pretty much ease. Because Dynatrace is also extremely easy to deploy, quick time to value, and very easy to make pervasive within any environment in short order.
yeah. There was one slide that was really interesting that they showed during our partner summit. They basically had like a company that was the before Dynatrace and after Dynatrace image, and they showed the kind of the tool rationalization graphic. I mean, we talk about this all the time with our clients. They went from 36 different tools to mostly Dynatrace and some tools where it made sense. And
Yeah.
that was a really if I find it when we do release this episode, I'll have a link in the bottom where you could view those slides. I thought that that was a really cool slide. So if you're looking at rationalizing your observability story um, and trying to reduce your costs, there's no better way than saying, okay, we can remove. There's 80% overlap between, you know, 10, 20 of our tools in Dynatrace. Let's get rid of as many of those as possible and try to fill in the gaps where we can. So.
No, that definitely is because there's oftentimes two different cost models. There's the hard costs, meaning Dynatrace and all of these other potential tools cost me X and Y amount of money. But then there's the soft costs, which is often overlooked. And those are the costs of the operational overhead. How many people does it take me to operate and manage this platform? What is the time it takes my team to learn how to use this tool and extract the value of the platform? And both of those are highly important because sometimes the soft costs could be more expensive than the hard costs, especially when you start looking at observability and everything surrounding observability and productivity.
Yeah, when you have one user that's managing, one user per tool managing 36 tools, and you could bring all that knowledge or most of that knowledge into one platform, that's a really powerful adder to the business, right? Like you're multiplying the value of the tools and you're multiplying your expertise in a given tool set. And I think that's often overlooked. Like you know, rather than adding value to the business, you've got all this massive fragmentation of tooling everywhere, and it's very hard to get to um, 50, 60, 70% adoption per tool. Whereas if you consolidate to one tool, all of those engineers can come together and try to increase the adoption of that tool, build around that tool, quickly execute when the time comes to execute. Right? There's less of an argument of we should do this here versus we should do this there. Let's just get the data that we need in front of our clients, stakeholders, executives, um, and the tool provide. I think over time the tool that provides the most value in this arena is going to win. It's going to be easier and easier to justify. Let's just consolidate on one platform. The old way of doing things no longer works. I need my data in context across all facets of our industry, right? Like whatever it is we're doing, we need security data alongside networking data, alongside advanced observability, alongside our live debugging efforts to really improve our user experience, and that's what it's all about.
Agreed. And I guess my next question, Roy, is what do you think is next for Dynatrace? Like looking at the logical progression of all the amazing announcements, where do they go from here? Where do you think the rest of 2025 and beyond is looking like for a platform as prolific?
So I think they've taken kind of the Facebook meta model to the way they're running their business, which I think is interesting. Uh, so what we're seeing is that these competitors are coming in the market. They have creative ideas, and Dynatrace is coming in and implementing some of those ideas. So like, or acquiring some of those ideas in the case of Rookout. So live debugging, acquired feature, security, direct competitor to some of the CSPM tools out there, particularly the ones that are directly provided by the hypervisors. So like your Google SCCE, your Azure offering for security, your AWS offer for security. They're coming after those subsets of the subsections of observability and tying them all together. And I think it's powerful because you don't have to have that second tool. You could just
And
say, now I'm just going to edit, and it's a marginal increase in cost. I already own the platform. I already have the engineers that know how to execute on the platform. Now I have my data where I need it to be.
yeah,
Um, so I,
and
th- I
there's a
think
lot of
I think
value
that's going to
in,
continue.
yes. Yeah, and there is, to that point, a lot of value in not having to switch from one tool to another to see your observability data layered in with your security posture, layered in with your logging, all in one easy to find place where you can overlay them together and gain insights that you otherwise couldn't in multiple disparate tools.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think there's a growing extension ecosystem. So there's hundreds and hundreds of integrations, and that continues to grow. And even the developer experience there means that smaller companies like us can come in and develop an extension for one of our clients for a feature that may not exist today. And that know-how and knowledge can be, distributed via marketplace within Dynatrace, and that's also powerful. And so there is value everywhere, and I think this is the year, or these next 2 years, uh, with the speed of software engineering increasing tremendously, right? Like if you go out there and develop a piece of software now with Cursor, with Windsurf, with some of these new IDEs that exist, they make the development process a lot faster. From my experience, when I'm writing software now, it's oftentimes some of the boilerplate and some of the things that would have taken me, a few days to develop, I can now get mostly done within hours. Um, and um, it's just, it makes it very, very simple to take on projects that you wouldn't even have taken in the first place. So there are a lot of really good ideas out there that you may have said before, hey, the time to value on this idea is not, it's not good enough. Well, with AI, maybe the time to value and the engineering time saved is good enough, and you might have extra time to spend on that project. I think there is increasing value in observability, as they've shown us. I think Barclays did a small presentation there. They increased the addressable market from 18 billion to 50 billion for observability. They also mentioned that the top three observability vendors only account for, I think it's 10% of the market share. So I think there's room to consolidate. I think we're going to see more acquisitions. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I think Dynatrace is going to continue uh, to trade blows one for one with Datadog from a feature perspective, and I think that's good. I think that's good for the industry.
I agree. Nothing like some good, healthy competition to realize what innovation can do. Roy, before we adjourn today, I did want to ask, what do you wish you saw being announced at Perform? If you could request one feature, one thing that Dynatrace could do that it doesn't do today that they didn't announce, what do you think that would be?
I think that one of the weaknesses that I see with Dynatrace that often comes up is on the networking side. I would expect that some kind of acquisition or some kind of improved integration happens in the networking space with Dynatrace. And I would expect that to be announced by probably next year, if I had to guess. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good players in the network space that are specialized that might be a really good and compelling acquisition for Dynatrace so that they can complete their network integration suite. Not to say that it doesn't exist, but I think it's one of those weaker points, and I think they could improve there.
Agreed. Thank you for that incredible insight, Roy. Definitely appreciate getting your expert vantage point on everything from Perform 2025. Again, lots of great announcements from Dynatrace. Everyone, we invite you to join us and listen to future sessions of our Tech Sessions podcast here at E360. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.